In every boardroom today, one silent force decides who gets the promotion, who earns trust in crisis, and who quietly presents despite great talent, habits, not a generic work hard to be disciplined advice, but the strategy habits that shape how leaders think, decide, show up, and compound impact over the years. Careers are not longer built only on qualifications; they are built on daily choices. Not no one is watching. We are living through transition where technology, AI, cybersecurity threats, shifting strategies, and aggressive growth expectations collide. Leaders are asked to be calm, clear, and high performing in their environments that are anything but strategic habits are now the real operating systems, from how you learn about AI to how you protect data. How you negotiate priorities, coach teams, design your own day. The gaps between busy professionals and elite leaders is increasing a habit gap. Before we dive into the topic, let's have a small video played about power of knowing. Our guest today sits exactly at the intersection of workplace reality and leadership aspirations. Brenda Mendes, the job search and executive coach, career coach, certified master trainer from global FMG major, spent 32 years at HUL, spent years inside high performance environments, training, coaching, and preparing professionals not just survive corporate life but intentionally build careers that scale. She understands how technology, cybersecurity, strategy, and growth all show up in everyday behaviors, in interviews, in performance reviews, in stakeholder meetings, and in the habits people carry back home. He, her work has been turning careers from hope it works out to I know how to move with intention. And this episode is about giving our audience the same advantage. Brenda, let's welcome Brenda Madam to our session today and dive into the topic. Hi, ma'am. Welcome to our podcast. How are you today, ma'am?
Very well. Thank you, Prem, for that generous introduction. And thank you for this opportunity. And thank you for whoever is watching. Thank you for the gift of your time. And I think today we are really living in the biggest revolution after the assembly line. And the whole world is screaming AI and technology. And on the side, a quiet revolution is also taking place in the way leadership is perceived and how workflows take place in the corporate space. So these are the things, the small principles which make a big impact, which we are going to talk about today, not great ideologies. So thank you, Prem, for this opportunity.
Welcome to our session and thank you for joining us today. Ma'am, let's understand how has the leadership transformed for the last few years, ma'am?
Yeah, that's a very good question because I think we have at least some leaders over here, and I hope this resonates with them. I would say the old command and control leader died between COVID and ChatGPT. And what has survived actually is a leader who is now focused on other people's competencies rather than his own dependencies. So it is a mind shift that has taken place from command and control to collaboration and clarity, from individual brilliance to collective wisdom. Because today, no leader is an expert on everything. And we have moved from, I think, the authority and power which came with titles to now the influence and the impact which comes from the behaviors of the leaders. And the main focus has shifted from the leader to those who are actually his team, those who are under him. Because today the leader's job is not just to control, lead, but to give direction, to give judgment, to give vision, and mostly to help others rise. It is not only about him gaining his power, but also fulfilling other people's dreams by helping them to rise. And I think in this respect, Simon Sinek puts it very well when he says, leadership is not about being in charge, it is about taking care of those in charge. And I think in this respect, AI has also played an impact on this, on the concept of leadership, because AI and technology has democratized knowledge. So now knowledge is not the monopoly only of the leader. That is one thing. And the second thing that has happened is that leaders have become far more visible in all the digital spaces. And so I think the sort of the level of trust, of integrity and ethics, that bar has been raised to some extent, and this will be a continuing journey. Over to you. Thank you.
Okay. What role has AI played in this change, madam? So if you really look at, because we are talking about leadership, right?
So I have actually answered this question by saying that now, since knowledge is available on tap, you don't have to look to the leader for the knowledge. So there is something else the leader needs to do. That's to give clarity, direction, a vision. So these are the changes that have taken place, and leaders have to be far more disciplined because they are far more visible. So they have to be very careful of what digital trail they leave behind. So I think ethically, trust and integrity will have to go up.
Ma'am, I think there's a light which is glaring on your this one. So if, yeah,
On my
okay.
specs,
Yes, ma'am.
okay.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Uh,
Thank you for telling me that.
yeah. Executive presence from your experience at HUL or other companies, how do leaders build executive presence, ma'am?
Now, that I think is a difficult question to answer, because to say what is executive presence, it has become almost an industry.
Okay.
But to put it very simply, I would say it is that magnetic quality which makes you noticed and remembered. And Webster describes it as the way you walk, you talk, you dress, you show up consistently, which gives uh, people a certain perception of you. And we know people with great executive presence these days, to quote, I think, Sudha Murthy or Indra Nui. For me, it has been Mr. J.R.D. Tata, with whom I had some interactions. And more so than anything, I think Kiran Mazumdar. Why Kiran? Because in the 1990s, Unilever had 11 companies, and Biocon was one of them.
Okay.
And so these companies, all the heads of these companies would come together for a national committee meeting. And every time I met her, she would, she just can walk into the room and fill the room with her presence and energy. And she was the only woman on that national committee. But I used to jokingly say to my friends, actually, she's the only man on the committee. So it is not only an external thing, but it is also an internal value which people see in you. So I would say the 5 C's of executive presence would be: one, your character. Do your actions match your words and make you credible? Two, your charisma, your warmth, your approachability. It may be just even your smile, something that makes people want to come to know you. The third, I think, is confidence. And this is not about arrogance, but it is a quiet self assurance where you come across as a highly grounded person. And the fourth is credibility, where you say what you promise to do, you do it and deliver it in time. And I think the last C, the fifth C, is connection. Especially today in a hybrid and remote working, connection has become very important. It is connection is the bridge between competence and relatability. So it is how well you listen to people, understand them, understanding their feelings, and build meaningful relationships. Over to you.
Yeah. Now, you were talking about some of the personalities where we all have been hearing them, say J.R.D. Tata or Kiran Majumdar Shah. I think that's a different level of leadership that we have seen, and how they interact when they come into the room, how they light up the room is what you're talking about. I think that's one thing that they have shown repeatedly in many of the conversations, that it takes a leader to build a leader kind of way that they have brought up the teams also is what I. Now, how does this executive presence show up in group meetings and one-on-one meetings and even in emails? Share one tip if you can for each of them, which we can look at, because we there's a charisma when they are at a larger group. How does those things be looked at when they are alone or on one-to-one meeting is what we want to understand, ma'am.
Yes. Yeah, again, it's a little difficult, but I will say I've attended so many meetings in 42 years of working, as well as after that. There
Okay.
have been two types of meetings. One is where the leader has actually prepared a very detailed agenda, giving all the points, time, breaks, etc. 3 day agenda. But at the end of the 3 days, we found that we have only covered not even the whole agenda of the first day. So I think this is how intentional leaders can make a meeting very different, because they prepare very intentionally, deciding what is this meeting for? What is the outcome that I want from this? Maybe a decision on a product or a behavior change or whatever. They are very clear. And then when they start the meeting, they start with a 5 or 7 minute introduction, which sets the tone for the whole meeting, not just going with the flow as people start talking. And after that, the leader keeps quiet for a while and allows everybody else in the room to speak. And then the leader speaks last. I think this concept also has been brought out quite a lot by Simon Sinek, where he got it really from Nelson Mandela. Because Nelson Mandela was, his father was a tribal chieftain, and he used to go accompany him to the meetings. And there he found that his father always spoke last. So I think this is also what leaders do. And once everybody has spoken, if there's a consensus, great. But if there's no consensus, then the debate does not just go on. An intentional leader takes a decision at that point. And I think also the leader makes the difference by sort of directing the conversation every time it goes off board, bringing people back to the table of what he really wanted to discuss. So at the end of the meeting, you're left not just hanging in the air, but with a clear CTA or action steps. And then, since you asked about emails, it doesn't end there. The leader will then go on to follow up with a clear cut email. Now, there are lots of things. I've got a whole video on emails, but I would just say one point. You need to spend 50% of your time in crafting the subject, because the subject matter decides whether, when and if at all uh, your audience opens the. And even if you're a leader, don't think if you put urgent and important on every email, your audience is going to see it. Instead, craft, instead of just saying MOM, dated so and so meeting, you can craft it a little better by saying 5 action points or 7 next steps that will make the people read. And then in your email, after the greeting, never say dear all. I receive a message from every week from a leader which says dear Mrs. He doesn't know whether I'm Mrs., Mr., whatever. I don't know how he does it, but it doesn't, although he's an excellent on his LinkedIn profile and his training, he's a leader, but that puts me off. Then I think the body should have your main points, whatever your 3 points or 7 steps. And again, at the end, you sum it up with a summary and a CTA. So people need to know exactly what they have to do and by when. And this is what I think changes the meeting completely. But one-on-one, I think it is more about asking. We will talk about it, I think, as we go along the way. It is more about asking questions and trying to understand the other person rather than just, communicating what you have in mind. Over to you.
Uh, Thank you for that, madam. Now, when we talk about listening, right? So, most of the people don't listen; they just want to hear and they want to respond, right? And that's been a culture in many of the meetings that we've seen. Now, why is deep listening important for leaders at all levels? Because that's one thing that we want to understand as you've been interacting with leaders. Your view on it, ma'am.
Yeah, when I started working in 1971, leaders never thought about much listening. We thought leaders were all about being great speakers,
Okay.
orators.
Okay.
But today's leaders, being in a collaborative world, need more to listen. Actually, listen twice as much as they talk. Listen to get feedback for themselves, as to their own um, uh, limiting beliefs or their unconscious sort of assumptions, as well as they have to listen before they act, listen before they decide, and listen before they make a judgment. So there are 3 levels of listening. The first one you already spoke of, actually, that is transactional listening, which is more focused on you. So in this listening, you're just hearing, but in actually you're focused on yourself. You're not listening to understand, but to respond. So this is the first level. Many of us do that. But there's the second level, which is active listening. And I think today's leaders are quite aware of this and are targeting this or on the way to this, where your focus is not on you, the focus is entirely on the other person, and you're trying to not only listen to the content but also the context, the background. You're actually taking so focused that you're taking in the body language, the tone of voice, the underlying feeling. So this is also called listening with empathy. And this is, I think, very good because people feel understood over here. But there is another level of listening, which today research says is global listening. And here it is about listening with your intuition, listening with all your senses, listening, understanding what is not being said, listening with the entire environment so that you know exactly what is happening. And it goes beyond empathy, because here this listening triggers something in you, something that you want to do something about it. So it is also called compassionate listening. In one word, if I say, global listening is being willing to be changed. I'm repeating this because there may be some leaders listening. Being willing to be changed. And that's when people understand that you're willing to be changed. That's when psychological safety actually takes place. Over to you.
Yeah, you are talking in a point where you started with saying that it was leaders at 1971 being orators because they had to pass the message, right? And they had to motivate people to bring them to doing some certain tasks. That is one thing. Then motivate them to be part of a community, or tell them what exactly is what being done as a leader, what is that intention of being a leader, and how they are bringing the communities alive. So that was the stage. And what you are saying today is the things have changed. There are a lot of people with many ideas is what we are seeing, and those ideas are to be heard is what we are seeing in today's generation, where leaders have to listen. And you said about Simon Sinek saying that leaders speak at the last, right? So they here get a context on what exactly the whole team is looking at, and that's where I think what you're saying is then they talk about saying this is what we found, and these are the pointers that we are in sync, and these are the pointers which we are not in sync, and maybe there is a difference in opinion of what you think and what I think. That's the kind of leadership that we are seeing today is what you are saying, man. Can you elaborate about more on the three levels of listening, if you can, ma'am? Any pointers around it, ma'am?
Actually, I think you have been little away from the your screen. I have gone into this in great detail.
Okay.
So you watch the recording
Mhm.
and have spoken in great
Okay.
detail. But actually, about first listening is just the listening to respond. Second is with empathy. You understand the feelings. But the third is where you're willing to be changed.
Okay.
When
So
you're willing to do something about it, that's the global.
sure, sure. So you are saying the three levels is you need to be one is
Active.
active.
One is transactional, then active listening and global listening.
Wonderful, ma'am. Thank you for that, ma'am. Uh, Staying relevant without burnout, and how can the mid-career professional design a realistic learning routine around AI and digital tools today, ma'am? Any pointers on that, ma'am?
Yeah, I think here mid-career professionals, you're meaning about late 40s,
Yeah.
early 50s. One mistake they make is that they are resistant to AI and technology, and they don't embrace it as a friendly tool to improve their productivity, but instead they look at it like we look at a final exam. They're struggling with it. And so there's a mindset change that needs to happen, that this is anyway something that is going to help me, and not something that is going to put me down. So I think the learning routine, when you're starting a learning routine, they all need to upskill, all of us at every point of time. But when you're upskilling, some things to keep in mind is relevance. So ask yourself, what part of my current job can AI do today? Because there are hundreds of apps. Where will you start? With something that is relevant to your role today, your evolving role, or the role you're aspiring to transition into. So that's the first. And I think it is also to start small, with small steps taken repeatedly. So I would say 20 minutes a day, 4 to 5 times a week on one tool is very good. But the third point is convert the learning immediately. Start slow, but convert the learning immediately into practice. For instance, I'm a great fan of Notebook LM. I've done several classes on it, but I haven't uploaded my own data on Notebook LM. So I've not got any sort of outcome out of it. So I think these are the things that people should keep in mind, the relevance, and take it as something that you will only build you up, and it's not an enemy, it's a friend. I think that's the thing that people need
No,
to.
I think we've been talking on this AI tools and digital tools. It's not an enemy, and people always have that notion of saying that they will get removed from their jobs, and this is a constant thing that is happening in the industry where people feel AI and tools would be replacing them, we've been always communicating saying that tools are there to ease your work, not to replace you. So be rest assured that it is not going to replace you. Now, what message to someone? What would be your message to someone who secretly feels I am too late to catch up with all this AI and the tech buzz that is going around? So, as we spoke about this mid-level careers, this one that we are having. So, what is your take on that when we talk about this pointer where they are thinking still they are late to catch up?
I think what you're talking about is an ageism factor,
Yeah,
really.
yeah.
And truly, although companies will say they have no agency bias, the truth is it is there. So, and especially in India, when we have that demographic dividend still of young people being available. But remember, AI may not replace you or your job, but people who are at the cusp of AI or who are experimenting more with AI, they will probably replace you. And as far as ageism, I would actually quote Mark Twain, who says that age is a matter of the mind.
Okay.
If you don't mind, it hardly matters. So I think that's how we need to look at it. And these people need to realize that they don't need to compare themselves with the younger professionals, because they have already got 1 or 2 years of rich experience. So they need to compete with their strengths, and their strengths are judgment, decision making, maturity, uh, uh, pattern recognition, risk assessment. These are the things that younger people may not have an advantage on. So I think build on those skills and also upskill, as we've already said. And don't try to compete with what you already have, because you're at a different stage. It's not that you're too late. You're differently positioned. So use and leverage that position you have, and whatever transferable skills you have picked up, try to see how you can use them in various jobs, because you have those skills. Maybe it's time management, communication skills, but you have an edge in those skills. So try and find that out. And one more insight I'm going to give, which is from research, which many people don't realize. Neuroscience today, especially research done by Stanford, and it's also verified by many other universities, is this: the human brain starts working, size of the brain grows from 0 to 6. There it plateaus. But then the second spurt starts at about 60 plus. So I would say to any one of you who is going to be in that thing, please look forward to it. I've experienced it personally, and take advantage of the second spurt, which is then it. In this spurt, you actually can use both sides of your brain almost simultaneously. So in this case, actually beyond this age, some kind of multitasking is possible, whereas earlier it's just you can never do multitasking. So I think use this insight to encourage yourself.
We were talking in one of the sessions that we had where we were talking about managing multi-generational teams, right? So you have one guy is in 50s, one guy is in 40s, you have the people who are the freshers, and they are part of the team. And how do we manage? Then this pointer came and was that these experiences who are doing in those risk management, you rightly said, the senior guys would understand how decisions are taken, when to cut off, when to proceed, and how the project is estimated, how you can look at risk assessment, change management. Current generation knows all these risk, change, and everything, but how do they put those into the work is one thing that the seniors can help the juniors, is what we were discussing. And that discussion was very nice, where we had Lakshmi S. Atriya saying that she has been talking to consulting firms who have this kind of crowd, which is a mix of new freshers, little bit experience, and the senior leaders. So it gives a lot of difference, lot of opinions, lot of different perspectives for the same point. So that's what we were learning in those this one. I completely look at what you are saying, ma'am. Now, what is one tiny 5-minute habit that can change the trajectory of a person stuck in his career?
Okay, let me think. I think when people are stuck, when they're overstressed or they feel they're overloaded with work, what comes to their mind immediately, spontaneously, the first thing they think, I have to work harder. I have to put in more hours. But this is not how it works, because it's not about time management, it is more about energy management. Because time is something external and it's finite. You cannot add more hours or even seconds to a day. But your energy is internal and it's infinite. So I think every one of us has our own pattern or rhythm of energy. So it is important to reflect and understand what kind of an energy pattern your body follows. Are you a morning person or you are late afternoon bloomer? And accordingly design your daily work accordingly. And many people, leaders do this actually. They say in the first half an hour, no calls, no meetings, you know, things like that. Because it is ultimately not about how many hours you put into your work that matters. That matters less than the amount of energy you put into your into those hours. So I think this is one thing that I would say: manage your energy better, not just your time.
I think then you are putting the right things there, because if you have the energy, you'll understand the sense of time as well. So you will relook at how it is to be done with the limited time. I think that's a very important point. How can leaders manage trust and integrity in cyber risk and high visible environment?
See, Prem, this is a given. All of us, once we are born today on planet Earth, we are, we run the risk of cybersecurity. I personally have had one bad experience. And leaders, since they are, more visible, they have to be more intentional and more disciplined, because you're visible everywhere. Everything you say, you do, whether it's in your speeches, it's not just the posts you make and the comments. It is every platform that you are on. You are visible and you are being seen, and your reputation is being made. So even the screenshots that you take, even the things that you save, even the emails that you forward, all of them tell a story about you. So you have to be very intentional about this, and keep track of your digital trains. It's not just what you put, it's even each of you here may be using 5 or 6 um, uh, AI apps. It is even all that you say, all the questions you ask, answers you get from those apps, those are also in the public domain. So it's much more than googling. I remember in 20 when chat gpt came out, very soon after that I reversed AI myself. I said, chat gpt, tell me something about Brenda Mendes. The last sentence was, she lives a life of significance. And I was shocked. I said, in the last, since Chat GPT has come, I have not said this. And then I remembered that in one session in 20, when the Super Speaker uh, first season came out, in the first video, I had last of all, what does success mean to you? I had said that success means significance. So today it is that extent. In fact, a few days ago, I reversed AI myself on 4 platforms: Perplexity Pro, ChatGPT, Claude, and Gemini. And I got a standard, of course, ChatGPT knew a little bit more, but a standard full version of wherever I've spoken, wherever I've, they seem to know more than what my memory goes. So I think you need to be here. The principle to be followed is be congruent, be consistent on every platform, and be conscious of what you're putting out in there. Be open, but do not overshare, and be very conscious about information boundaries when you're whether you're sharing personally, and especially if you're doing professionally, because some big banks, especially Wall Street, will not tolerate you putting anything. Even your attire when you're going on a vacation is under the scrutiny of the company. So be very careful about that, and don't make any adverse comments. You're bound to be provoked on social media. I would say just be neutral. Just say thank you for your comment. Don't get into any debate. Don't share, it's a toxic culture of a company, a toxic boss. In fact, here I'd like to say there was one very important, well-known leader who shared one story about only one toxic boss that he had in his career. Sadly, everybody knew who that toxic boss was. And I think his reputation took some beating with that. So that is something never to do. And if you ask me in one sentence, how can you build up your sort of your security or your trust in this? I would say do what you said you would do when you said you would do it, and if you can't, give a feedback as early as possible, because as Warren Buffett says, it takes 20 years to build a reputation
Yeah,
and only 5 minutes to
lose
ruin
it.
it.
Yeah, yeah. I've heard about this. One pointer that I want to ask is how can leaders master the art of making great presentations? Because uh, you will have to give a lot of data in a concise manner and with a limited period, right? And you'll have to talk to everybody who's there in the audience. So your take on it, ma'am.
First of all, I would like to ask the audience, though I can't see you,
Okay.
how many of you have studied the art of making presentations either in school or college? Prem may be able to see the show of hands. It's a
Mm,
rhetorical question. Yes.
no,
If
I
you
will get it only on the.
Okay. I
Okay.
guess most of you would say no. Of course, if you've recently come out from an MBA college, then it is definitely included today in MBA colleges in their communication labs. But
Okay.
I think you need to remember that since a presentation is done for a certain purpose, keep in mind that every presentation you make, whether you're a leader or anything, even what I'm making just now, it's an advertisement for your personal brand. And so it is a leadership moment. And so you have to be very intentional about it. And I would say some points to keep in mind. The best formula actually that has been given for making presentations, which everybody quotes, is the one given by Lee Iacocca,
Mm.
the uh, the automobile guru, the American automobile leader. And what he says is these 3 things. I think if you follow it, it's a very good formula.
Okay.
First, tell the audience what you're going to tell them, and that's your structure or agenda. Second, tell them. That's the body of uh, of your of your slides. And finally, tell them what you told them, which is your summary.
Yeah.
I think this is a very good formula. And if you notice, what is the word that's common in all of them
Still
is the word them.
them.
So the first point to remember is that it's always about
Yeah.
them, it's never about you. It's always about the audience. What's in it for them? You have to know the audience and what is their pain point and what you are going to address. In fact, before doing this, just before, I looked at all the people who had registered. And when I saw the caliber of the people and the leadership levels, I was a little, I say, intimidated. But I said, no, no, I've been asked to do this, so I'll just do my best. And here I am. So you need to know the audience. And here I just want to tell you a funny story which was told to me by the secretary of Nani Palkiwala. One, he was a very busy man, brilliant man. Once he just came from one hearing, picked up his portfolio, next case, and he made two arguments. And a senior advocate whispered in his ears, "Sir, you're on the wrong side." So he was making arguments in favor of the prosecution, whereas he was the lawyer for the defense. So you can't do something like this. So keep the audience in mind. Secondly, use the KISS formula. Keep it simple. Because if you can't explain it simply, the audience will think that you don't know it very well. The third is manage the energy in the room. That's quite difficult. So manage the energy by asking questions, even if they're rhetorical questions, and vary your tone, your pace, use noisy pauses. And one thing that works brilliantly is, I think, silence. I remember in NM College, 650 students filled in the auditorium, some talking at the back, 2 seconds of silence, and the whole room was silent. So I think silence is very important. Also, asking questions so you keep people engaged and make it interesting. The only way you can make it interesting, now, facts and figures do not interest people, but stories do. So I think storytelling is a very, very important sort of skill for today's leaders. So here I want to spend a little time and give a short sort of formula for telling a story in just 4 or 5 sentences. And I use the CAR formula, CAAR. The
Okay.
C is for the context, not the entire background, but just the specific context. The A is for the actions you took, the 3 or 4 points action points you took. The third is the A is very important, this action insights. What obstacles did you face and what lessons did you learn? That's very important. And the third is, of course, the results with some metric attached to it. So I think this is a good formula for telling stories very quickly. And lastly, last point I would say in presentation is land the landing. People remember what you last said when you went out of the room. So keep that very sort of like a hook, land at the landing, ending. End with a great, either with a quote or with a small, great story, but something that people will remember. So get to the point. Let me talk about some mistakes that people make, okay, in presentations. And I think one of them is that they give a big background before they get to the point. So I would say get to the point fast. Once I had to make a 10-minute keynote, and I spent 4 minutes on a story. It bombed. So get to the point fast. Don't give too much. That's one mistake that you can make. Don't cram your slides with too many words. According to Shiv's, what's his name? CEO mindset. Shiv Narayan, the iconic leader, he says in his book that the standard gold standard for the world word count should be 35 words with 3 or 4 bullet points. Don't write in sentences, only bullet points. And the worst mistake you can make is if you're reading. If you're reading the slides, then you have lost the floor because the slides are only meant to support you, not to replace you. So these are the few things. I don't know if they will be of some value to the leaders who are listening, or even to the freshers who are getting into, who have already learned something about making presentations?
Very, very key pointers there, madam. I think what you are saying is it has to be a very structured approach that they have to look at when they present something, from how they start to how they complete or end the session, is what I understand from you. Now, can we have some of the do's and don'ts which you think matter here when they're making presentations?
Actually, I'm sorry to say this again, but I have already answered
Yeah.
that part. So I
No, any
don't.
summarizing on the pointers, say, because when you said,
I said, okay, I would say the audience, keep it simple,
yeah,
manage the energy, keep it interesting, tell stories, don't cram your the words, uh, keep it simple, and land the landing. And
okay,
don't give too much background.
sure, sure. Got it, man. Now, what team leadership qualifies to turn managers into leaders?
I would ask you that question actually. What's the difference between managers and leaders? I'm giving the audience 1 second or 2 seconds to just think.
Any comments you can post it, we can bring them on to the screen. If you are posting your comments who are listening, we would love to see and hear from you,
Let's go
audience.
ahead. I think basically managers, they execute, they
Yeah,
manage the projects, they work within the framework of their job description. Whereas leaders have connect the dots and give the broader picture. So managers about the how of the work, and a leadership quality. If you want to move from manager to leadership, you need a visionary mindset beyond the tasks, something that aligns everybody together in a common vision. Also, you need, I think, in today's day, great emotional intelligence. You need to have understand your own emotions, be able to regulate them, as well as understand other people's emotions, and then navigate the interpersonal skills. I think a third thing is trust and integrity. Should have been my first thing, because everything lands on trust and integrity, uh, in today's world or in any world. And also, I think leaders today need to have a coaching mindset so that they bring rise, they allow other people to rise now and achieve their dreams, and not only the leaders' ambitions. And also would say they need to be vulnerable. Today vulnerability is quite acceptable, and it makes people light. And of course, courage to take decisions and courage to take accountability. When you take full accountability for what you have, for mistakes, and when you give away all the credit, I think that makes you a great leader.
I think what you're absolutely saying is today vulnerability is called as a strength, because everybody does not know all the pointers that they have to work. Either they need somebody to help them out, and an SME sometimes needed to put some pointers in the right context also, right? So that's one thing. And I recall this statement where Mr. Abdul Kalam was working in, yeah, on his project, and his boss or somebody, I'm not sure,
His
uh,
boss.
yeah, they were working on the project and they forgot some of the important assignment, and this person runs in and takes them to the appointment, whereas the other person who is to look at that work continues to do his work. And when he goes home and he finds out that his boss had taken them out for that important session that they had to attend, it gives a different level of understanding for the boss and the respect as a leader he's done to take care of things that matter for him when he's at work. So I think that's one great leadership story that I've heard about. What do you think, ma'am?
Yes, it's a very, very, very. Abdul Kalam talks about this a lot. It was the launch of the satellite, I forget which one, and when it didn't take off, actually, Abdul Kalam was in charge of that.
Yeah,
but his boss refused to have him meet the media. And the next year, when they succeeded,
yeah,
he refused. He sent Abdul Kalam to the media meeting. So that's
exactly.
the
Right.
story. I remember that very well. Over
Yeah.
to you.
What is one ritual, weekly ritual, every leader should adopt to build high trust, high performance cultures in the organization?
I think I've seen this in quite a lot of leaders that what they do is they set aside, say, about 30 minutes a week for a weekly check in with their team. And this has nothing to do with performance or KPIs or, so it is more to feel the pulse of the team, to ask questions asked here are like, what is it that made you work harder last week, so they understand how things are going. Are there any conflicting priorities, so that gives a chance for everybody to align. And it's not just what, and also it ends with some theme for the next week or some small action point. It's not here the results, but it's the process. When you do this process continuously, people understand this leader is interested in my growth. And that is what inspires them to better efficiency and better engagement.
Great pointers there, madam. And we are running on top of the hour. I will take another two questions and then we will summarize and see, take some of the pointers that are coming in our comment boxes here, ma'am. Uh, According to you, is there one career asset that most professionals miss out on?
Thanks for asking that question, because I would have answered it without you asking.
Okay.
Yes, I think people miss out on one aspect, and that is the career journey. And
Mm,
this has been inspired by Lena Menina. She talks about it every time because and probably she's reached where she is because of journaling. This is when you do effective action and quiet reflection, it compounds. And your career journal creates a sort of a career trajectory for you. You can reflect on your learning patterns, you can reflect on your repeated mistakes and take uh, course correction. And I think it's also good fodder to use at the time of your interview, your annual review, or when pitching for your for a promotion, etc. So career journaling is not about looking backwards, it's about preparing forward.
thank you for that, ma'am. Now, when we were talking about feedback, right? So feedback is what we call is the breakfast for champions, and that's a statement that is being heard across. Feedback is critical for career growth. How can leaders transform feedback into feed forward? Any
Yeah,
pointers
this
there?
is always said, this is very well said. And
Mhm.
I think, yes, it is a very big accelerator. Done well, it's magic. Not
Yeah.
done well, it's a waste of time. So, some things to keep in, some pointers to keep in mind is what I'll say. The first is it should be timely and specific. Timely, I mean, as soon as you notice that behavior, very soon when you get the chance in private, give the feedback. Be specific. Recently, somebody came to me with 12 years of experience in one of the big four, and he's getting good feedback but no promotion. His only
Mm,
feedback is communication skills improvement. I asked him, tell me something more about it. Nothing. So there was
mm,
no specificity. I spoke to him for 1 hour. I could get nothing. So there should be specific and separate the person from the behavior. So be critical about the behavior, but don't attack or label the person. And also it's not a monologue, it's ask questions. It is a dialogue. So ask questions so you can refine your own beliefs and what you think about the person. Some two things to avoid, I would say. Now here people may not agree with me. I would say avoid the sandwich formula, because you don't know which piece of sandwich and what the chutney is between. People get confused. You say one word of praise, then one need for improvement, and then on the whole you have done well. So
mm.
avoid it. Be direct.
Okay.
And second, don't keep the feedback only for the annual review, because it's not fair. It has a recency bias. when you may have messed up in the last 2 or 3 months, but a boss will remember that, but will not remember the 9 months when you did good work. So I think these are things to keep in mind.
Thank you for that, ma'am. I'll bring up the questions that are there on the chat. Okay. Yeah. Let me. Yeah. Yeah. So first, there is one person from Hong Kong saying greetings. So thank you for joining, Charles. Uh, and we have a question. Very often we miss milestones and target dates due to various reasons. Mitigating such schedule slippages is indeed a
Uh-huh.
Herculean task. An ideal leader addresses these situations by identifying root cause earlier, prioritizing critical activities, enabling. So, your take on it, ma'am.
Actually, Charles, you've given not only the question, but you've also given the answer. I
This is
think
Venugopal, I think.
this is Venugopal. I think Dr. Venugopal, you also answered the question by saying that before you take people to task, try to find out what was the situation, what were the causes, and then you have to do some crisis management, rearrange priorities according to the criticality of the situation, use some problem solving skills which will come into good use here to make sure that you get back on track. You use a design thinking, I think, to solve these problems, because I use design thinking even for job search. So these are some of the so when you understand, you define the problem, you ideate, you prototype, and then you test, and so you go into it deeply to say, where did we go wrong?
When we asked something, I think one Raju said, I don't have anything, but I think next pointer that he says is storytelling works brilliantly. So his pointer is on what we are talking about, storytelling, how you can.
Thanks, 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 PR, for that. Thank you, and thank you for attending. I think you must have been the last person to who got to know about this, but I'm very grateful for you to that you took the time to be here despite all the other things happening. Thank you.
So again, Dr. Venugopal, his leadership is influence is what he's saying.
Yes, yes.
And managers, he says managers make the tasks done. So,
Leaders influence, and not by authority, but they influence by their behaviors and by their persuasion. It's influence and persuasion that leaders. You're absolutely right, Dr. Venugopal.
and there's one last question that we have. My question is especially online training sessions on how to manage audience. Trainer has to struggle a lot. So, this is what his point is. PR is saying. So,
I think, yeah, you have the right to drive the train. Right? So I think the way you allow people to speak, you allow people to speak, you give them a voice, and at the same time, you make sure that they don't disrupt your training. So give a voice to people to speak. Allow them to unmute, but don't allow them to sort of disrupt your meeting and take away on a completely different note. Try to be a little neutral, and this is where your leadership skills, being calm under pressure, that comes in there when you're managing an online session and it's going a bit haywire. Does that satisfy you, PK? PR?
okay, that's the pointers that we want. I'll just summarize when one. Yeah, I'll summarize the pointers that we have discussed over the last 45 minutes, ma'am. So, the key pointers that we say is workplace success is less about titles, is what we spoke about, and more about the invisible operating system of habits, is what we are saying. How you think, how you decide, communicate, and follow through on everyday activities, something like that, and strategic habits linked directly to the four pillars that we are talking about is tech, cyberspace, strategy, and growth, because each have their own way of looking at and they are interlinked, because when we talk about the four pillars that we're talking, when you have technology, you need somebody to manage it and protect it. So you have cybersecurity. When you have cybersecurity, you need somebody to guide and take it to growth. Is growth where we are talking. Similarly, when we talk about growth, we need to have a strategy put across. So that's the four pillar drive that we are running these podcasts. And by shaping us, how we learn, protect, trust, prioritize, and deliver results is what we talk in our podcast. And small and consistent behaviors compound into 3 to 5 year outcomes, influencing promotions, opportunities, brand, and inner confidence is what we are seeing. Unlearning is critical because we learn a lot, which we need to unlearn also, to look at some of the learnings that can be removed and sabotage the behaviors that show slow progress is what we say. And I think you can look at a program where you say 30 days I'll do this, 30 days I'll do this, and 30, 60, 90 days programs that can be habit blueprints or something that you can build up. Now as we close, and one stands truth is that careers don't transform the annual reviews, they transform you quietly. And decisions no more applaud. Strategic habits are how your future proof yourself in the world of AI disruption. That's what I wanted to say. And there is cyber risk, shifting strategies, and relentless growth expectations in any organization that we are working. So they are here to you to protect your energy, elevate yourself, impact, become the kind of leader you remain at the right for the right reasons. That's what I would like to say, ma'am. Any final words that you want to give it to the audience before we conclude, Vrinda ma'am?
I would just say to leaders, stay relevant. All leaders need to be students. Stay curious, keep learning, stay humble. Humility opens doors, arrogance closes doors. Build connections, uh, have clarity in your communication, in your feedback, and stay relevant. Because as I think John Maxwell says, leadership is not just about being right, it is about being ready for what's next. So
Yeah.
that's what I would like to leave you with as you be ended this podcast. Thank you for watching, thank you for being here, and thank you, Prem, for this wonderful opportunity.
And thank you, audience. Thank you, ma'am. This is the last podcast for this year, and I would thank ma'am to be here, part of the last concluding session of this year. And we will come back to you next year on a Wednesday with a new topic. And thank you, everybody. Good day and happy new year to everyone. Thank you, ma'am.
Yes, happy new year and gratitude.